my name is Chase Stryhal. I'm an aquarist too here at SeaLife Grapevine.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all. So if you are listening to this on the day it came out and you are in the United States, then you are listening to this on Election Day. And pretty important day for the United States. Hopefully it goes well. And regardless, if you live here, you're going to be real happy about not getting any more texts or emails or people knocking at your door. You know, it's just nice to have it over. And also, you know, hopefully our country isn't over. But whatever. That's not what we're here to talk about today. But, you know, I did want to do something to make this episode tie into the fact that it's coming out on Election Day. And I wasn't sure what to do, but then it hit me. You know, the election is often called the chase for the White House. And so I scoured every AZA institution to find a person named Chase to interview. No, I'm kidding, of course. That is just how this timed out, and I like making really dumb jokes. And if you're listening to this podcast, you either appreciate them or are willing to stick through them for the good zoo content and aquarium content. And y'all, we definitely have some good aquarium content today. SeaLife Grapevine in Texas is a new facility to the pod. And it's just, we have a really good conversation. So we talk about the resident sea turtle at the facility. We talk about the sea turtle hospital there. And there's actually this really cool thing that you're going to hear about that any guests can do to kind of connect to the sea turtle rehab side of things. And then we also talk about a bunch of really fun and cool fish, including a whole bunch of information about guitarfish that was brand new to me. So that was a lot of fun. And I think y'all will really, really enjoy that. This episode actually does have ties to a previous episode, but, you know, that all comes out when Chase and I are talking. So I'll let you find out about that when you listen to the interview. But in general, I just think this is a really good time. And it's particularly interesting because Chase, much like your buddy John, has a background in theater and then got into animal stuff. And so it's a really cool story. And I loved sharing so many connections with Chase, and now I get to share those with you. But before we do, quick reminder, make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the Tuesday interview episodes or any of the Friday Zoo News episodes. Make sure that you're following along on the socials at Rossifari on all of those, except for TikTok, where I am at Rossifari Pod. And, you know, if you feel like supporting the pod, you can go to patreon.com/Rossifari and support for as little as $3 a month. So with all of that said, it is time to head back to Texas and learn about some guitar fish and turtles and cool things at SeaLife Grapevine. Enjoy, y'all.
And as part of the aquarist team, we're the ones who go in, help take care of the animals. We're the ones diving the exhibits, making sure the animals get fed, making sure they get great health care. And we also work on a lot of enrichment and training with our animals to make sure they're not only physically, but mentally stimulated every day.
Very good. Cool. So first of all, thank you for having me out here. And
of course.
For the tour. We just finished a tour. It was a very good tour. And I apologize for accidentally breaking into your, gift shop by accident. Sorry about that.
You'd be surprised how many times that's happened.
Yeah. I try to be professional, but life keeps happening. But anyway, so thank you for this. And I kind of wanted to start off, I know you haven't been here too terribly long. So what was your path to getting here?
I have had a very strange career path.
Nice. Let's hear it.
When I was in like elementary and middle school, I really wanted to be a marine biologist. I was going, watching those like TV shows, growing up on Animal Planet. I was like, this is something I want to do. But when I hit high school, I really discovered my love for the arts and working in theater, be it painting, sound design, set design. And I ended up actually pursuing that through college.
Okay.
My BFA is from Oklahoma City in technical theater.
Nice.
I'm specifically designing sound and set design.
I have a question. I need to pause you there for a second. So you did theater, which I do as well, and you did sound design. And yet you couldn't quite get a lavalier mic on today. What happened? How did your education fail you so badly?
I'm used to the mics the center of your forehead and the battery pack in the back, or the over the ear Britney Spears mic.
I just had to pick on you a little. That is kind of funny.
Technology has changed a lot in the 7 years since I started college. So.
That is fair. But sorry, I just had to. So anyway, so you get your BFA and you're studying technical theater, and now you're an aquarist. So let's follow that journey.
Yeah. So I was spending my summer at Summer Stocks. I luckily through theater was able to live in a variety of different states. I lived in Oklahoma, Kansas, and New York at different stages of my theater career. And once my junior year summer, I was like, I really don't want to move. I don't want to go live somewhere for 3 months just to come back. I have schoolwork I need to be working on. So I ended up getting a job at the local zoo, at the Oklahoma City Zoo and Botanical Garden, working in their education front of host staff.
Did you find that was an easy transition from theater since you were speaking to public and stuff? It
felt very natural. I remember my first day after being in the 108-degree weather in the middle of summer, talking about wallabies to guests who would walk in and calling my mom and being like, that was so much fun.
Nice.
I have never had so much fun at a job. And from there, it spiraled. I finished up my degree in BFA. But then my senior summer, I went back and I also started volunteering with their marine mammal department. Ooh. And then because I had this theater background, they always needed help on their shows because they do a sea lion and seal and marine mammal presentation multiple times a day. And having somebody who knew how to work a soundboard, how to work a lighting board, turned into a job, essentially. I was started just as a volunteer in their department learning about the animal care, but then I was being paid to work their shows, to help redo some of their systems. And then after I graduated, I got very lucky and was offered a full-time position with the aquarium department because they work very well together.
Nice.
They work very closely in the diving and the taking care of the animals. And I started working there in 2018 as an aquarist. The majority of their aquarium had shut down in 2017, but they still had their marine mammals. They still had a stingray touch tank and a huge variety of animals throughout the zoo, which was very fun and gave me a lot of unique experiences. And after working there for just a month, I was like, this is what I want to do. As much as I enjoyed theater, as much as I enjoyed making art, taking care of the animals, I was like, this is bringing me back to being a child and finding that love and that discovery of working with animals, of exploring the unknown, of stretching your scientific muscles. And I was like, this is it.
That's really cool. It's really funny because, in my own way, I'm going through something kind of similar. Obviously I started the podcast a couple years ago and I've been in love with the animal world and zoos and aquariums forever. But my entire focus was on drumming and theater and my career and all of that. And then as I started to get into this world, I just fell in love with it. And I was literally on stage last night playing, $1 Million Quartet. And literally during one of the parts where I'm just kind of in the background but I'm on stage, I'm not doing anything. And I was thinking about how much I miss Aquarium of Niagara and how much I was bummed that they just sent out the volunteer schedule for the next 3 weeks and I'm not on it. And of course I'm not on it. I'm not there. I'm aware that I'm not on it. This is my, fault that I'm not on it. And it made me sad. And I was thinking about it on stage and I'm like, crap, I remember when my life was focused entirely on getting my butt to get on stage. And now I'm standing on stage, missing my marine mammals and my penguins. Yeah, so I think I can really relate to that.
And it helped me also discover art in my free time again, too, because working those 40 hours as an artist, it suddenly became a paycheck, not your passion and your love. And that sort of re-inspired me. So now in my free time, I can spend more time painting, of designing things, of just goofing around with art, which helped me just rediscover that love and passion.
That's really cool. I hear that from a lot of people. I've never, as much as I love other things, I've never lost my passion for the art, like doing it professionally, which is cool. But I hear that from a lot of people who have stepped away. Excuse me. I've been on stage. I smoke these fake cigarettes, and I think they really have like screwed up my throat. I don't normally do it, but yeah, I'm not sick at all, but my throat is just raw from it. Not great.
And the Texas weather doesn't help. It's been a ragweed.
What is this? Talking about just like climate change and pollution and all the things that we worry about here, just getting orange warnings that like there's a thing today, like stay inside. I was glad I was coming here instead of going to a zoo.
Yep. Especially in the fall, a lot of allergies kick up. We have ragweed, all sorts of grasses. And while I do very much love working at the zoo, some days it's very nice to be inside all day.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And so that's fascinating that you got that transition like that. That's really cool. Because actually, I have noticed there are many facilities that I've been at where I'm like, oh, they need audio help. This is a great presentation, but it sounds like crap.
Yep. Or their audio cues are really awkward and uncomfortable. And like, if you have somebody just to like spend 10 minutes editing them.
Yep. No, I've had a couple times where people have been like, hey, our mics aren't working. You're here for your podcast, and suddenly I'm at a soundboard and like, okay, let's see what's going on. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. So what brought you from there to here?
So I worked there about a year and a half, and my family's from Dallas. I grew up in Richardson, and then my parents moved to Plano when I was in high school. And while I was up in Oklahoma City, I went to school there and graduated and got my first job there. I've always wanted to come back and be closer to my family and my friends, and it was hard, like being away for certain events, because in this field, you're going to work Christmas some years, you're going to work Thanksgiving some years. You can't always take time away to see your family on those holidays. And it was always kind of in the back of my mind, like, if there's a position that opens up, I really want to apply for it. Because I love the people that are most important to me. So in 2019, I applied for the Children's Fair Park of Aquarium. Where if you remember Natalie.
Yeah, of course.
That's where I met her.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
And I started working there in 2019, and it's such an amazing team that they had there. It's a smaller aquarium. But the animals are very unique and very personable. We had a lot of like really great one-on-one interactions because it is a smaller aquarium. You don't see the number of guests that you'll see at a larger zoo or aquarium, and you can really take the time to talk to kids, to have whole conversations with guests that are visiting. And it was an amazing team at the time. And I worked there up until 2022. When COVID hit, they unfortunately decided that it wasn't worth the number of guests that we could have in at a time to properly manage the COVID restrictions. They decided to keep our doors closed to the guests. So for about a year and a half, we didn't have a single guest walk through the door. Oof. And we were still going in every day, working our 10-hour days, but without seeing a single person. And I saw these people more than my family because we were still trying to face those COVID restrictions, trying to do what we can. And so we were split into two teams, and the team of like the four of us that were there Sunday through Wednesday became my family, and we became very close in that time. And eventually it was decided that they were no longer able to afford to keep the Children's Aquarium because underneath the Dallas Zoo umbrella, although the city helped fund it as well. And it was a mutual decision. I completely understand, even though it was devastating, of how can you pay for an entire aquarium that nobody's seeing.
Right.
So we started the very hard process of shipping out animals. And luckily, as we talked about during the tour, we're very lucky to be in DFW, where we have so many great partnerships with the Fort Worth Zoo, with the Dallas Zoo, with Dallas Wood Aquarium, and with SeaLife here, that as we reached out and were like, hey, we unfortunately need to start deacquisitioning our animals, everybody stepped forward and say, hey, what can we do to help? Whether it's we can take the animals, whether it's do you need trucks, or do you need supplies? Do you need salt water to like help transition these animals? Do you need like what do you need? And it was such an amazing outpouring from our community here, our family here in Dallas and Fort Worth. And at the same time, those of us that were working there were still petitioning the city. We were calling in, we were going to those city council meetings, whether they were on Zoom or in person or on the phone, petitioning like, hey, there is so much that this aquarium can still provide. And what eventually happened was Zoo Oceanarium, who's the operating company for the St. Louis Zoo, eventually reached out and created an agreement with the Dallas Zoo to operate the Children's Aquarium. And they sort of became our new parent.
Oh, wow.
And they stepped in and we stopped deacquisitioning, and they said, we need to fill this aquarium. The fair opens in 3 months, and that was the first time the fair fully reopened. It wasn't just the drive-through fair, as the Texas Fair is known around the world.
Yes.
How big it is in Big Tex. Yeah. And it was such a jump start. It was like a shot of adrenaline of like, oh, we're not only getting animals back, but we're opening to see guests, and it's going to be during the busiest time of the year. And it was such an amazing experience to be part of this team. At this point, people had left, people had come in, and under Zoo Oceanarium, we were able to reopen up the Children's Aquarium. And I believe it's now Children's Aquarium at Fair Park. They might have changed the name a little bit, but it's still essentially the same at the Bones. It sells a lot of the same animals. And some of the facilities we reached out to were like, you can have your animals back, which is very awkward to be like, hey, sorry. And luckily, a lot of facilities were like, yeah, of course, whatever you need, because it's always so hard on the community as a whole. There's an aquarium, like online magazine, that put out an article because the Children's Aquarium is almost 100 years old. Mm-hmm. It's reaching its centennial. I believe it's like 86 right now or close. And they reached out and interviewed us before the closure, took our photo, did a walkthrough, and compared us to the 1930s and what we looked like during World War II, and seeing the history of this place and how hard it was for any aquarium to close down, especially with so much history. We're the first aquarium in Texas. And getting that outpouring of love and support from the aquarist community as we reopened was something that will sustain me for the rest of my career. And so I was part of the team that helped reopen that aquarium, taking on a senior position at the time. And then after we reopened, after we went through the fair, I was like, that was amazing. And I felt like I had poured so much of my life into this aquarium. I had seen it transition into a new team. And I was like, I think I'm ready to see what else is out there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a smaller aquarium. And while there are a lot of really cool animals, I realized, at some point, if I really want to expand my knowledge range and to work with different people in a different team and different animals, I need to just see what else is out there. And SeaLife was so amazing with us when we needed them, and they had a position open in 2022. After we had gone through the fair, and in like that January of that year, I reached out and applied for a position that had opened, and they offered it to me.
Nice.
And I've been here ever since.
Very cool.
A little over 2.5 years.
All right. Very cool. That's great. Yeah. I don't remember the name of the venue, but there's that big touring house in the park right there in Dallas.
Yep. Where they do the Orange Bowl.
Yeah. And we played there for, I don't know, a week. And so I got to spend a lot of time at that aquarium as well as at the other facilities in the area. And yeah, it's just a really, really nice little place. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it.
And you wouldn't expect it. I grew up in Richardson, and I grew up going to the fair, and I had no idea it existed until I moved back here. And I was like, oh, this is such a great hidden gem. And you could just get lost there because there usually aren't a ton of guests, except during the fair, of course.
Right.
But it is a great hidden gem.
Yeah, no, very much so. I thoroughly enjoyed it. That was probably 9 years ago now, or 8 years ago now. But yeah, good time.
That was before, I was there, and I think before Natalie too. But
yeah.
It was really cool because of course I listened to hers, both her and her AZA one that she was featured on, and hearing her talk about what family we created there was almost made me like cry. I like texting as I was listening. I was like, you and John have such great chemistry, and hearing you talk about that facility and then hearing her talk about SeaLife now too, it's like we've continued this friendship, even moving on, getting these different roles and responsibilities, but still having that connection that the aquariums and SeaLife has helped me build.
Yeah, that is really cool. And she was like insistent that we needed to like Like I needed to have you on. It was not so much.
You're not going to tell her no.
Yeah, no, never. I'm not allowed to. She has made that very clear. So you never quite know what's going to happen, but a show that I wrote got booked out in Phoenix for early next year. And we are already planning on spending some time together. And I think I'm going to go out early and like hang out.
Hey, if you can go on one of their herp trips.
That would be
with her and her husband.
That would be amazing.
They're always posting what they find.
Oh, I know. It's
poking
so
under
cool.
rocks, looking in trees.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, they are the best. I thoroughly enjoy that family. But
and it's such a small world. A little off topic.
No, yeah.
But her husband was actually in my brother's wedding. Before I had met Natalie, I was still working in Oklahoma City. Before she had been dating the gentleman that she's married to now, he was part of my brother's wedding ceremony here in DFW.
Oh, wow.
And I drove down here and I met him. My brother had a Star Wars themed wedding.
Oh, perfect.
And
perfect.
as I'm sure you know,
Bradley would love that. Yeah.
As I'm sure you know, Bradley is very into Star Wars and has a trooper outfit. And so he and a couple of the troopers were part of there to help sell that like experience. I say sell it. It's all volunteer that they do, you know, whether it's weddings or whatever. But they really helped push like Star Wars theme to the next level. And then it is so funny that a year later, then I'm working with his girlfriend, and they eventually get married. Like I've met them both at two just very different points. One at an aquarium, one at a wedding, doing like Star Wars things. And it is such a small world. Now they're married and living their best life out there.
That is really funny. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I want to have Bradley on at some point. I don't know that he says words, but it's kind of hard for a podcast. But you know, I think it would be exciting. So yeah. But so as you mentioned, you know, SeaLife is where we are, and so we should probably talk about it at some point. But no, I love that you had such an alternative journey into this career. And I love that it's one that, you know, I can relate to. That's very cool to me. But yeah, so one thing that I want to do right now, we'll talk about the aquarium in general. But as we did the tour, one exhibit stood out to me as something that I had just never seen before. And that was the flashlight fish, which are named ironically since you are very much not allowed to shine a flashlight on them.
No.
But can you like really go into detail on the exhibit and the species and what they look like and why this works and just what they are? I've never heard of this animal before.
Yeah, so it's in our seahorse temple, which is on our second floor of our aquarium. We're very lucky to have such a large aquarium. We actually need 2 floors to fit all of our animals.
Such a big smile came on your face when you're like, second floor, baby, woo!
And they fit really well with our seahorse area. It's a little bit of a quieter space. Things are a little bit more relaxed. There's some seating, so you can really just sit down and hang out with our seahorses, watch them eat if you're here for one of our feedings. And just as you're finishing the seahorses, there's this like a little bit of a dark corner. And if you just glance by it, you really don't see anything. You're like, oh, it must be under renovation. But if you like take a moment and you stare at it, you start to see all these like blinking green lights, like fireflies in the water. You're like, what is this? And you had that same reaction. You turned around and we were just like, wow. And especially hearing kids like, oh my gosh, that's a real animal. And it looks just like there are these fireflies in the water, this like bluish green light.
It is so crazy.
Yeah.
It is so trippy to see. Yeah.
And there's probably about 30 to 40 animals in there. And they're just all blinking all over the display. And they actually have a really cool adaptation where they've evolved to have these like flaps underneath their eyes that they can use to open and close this bioluminescence so they can communicate to each other, so they can hide better, so they can do all sorts of really cool interactions with their prey, with their predator. And we actually feed them when we do our seahorse feeding as part of a talk our education staff does, because they'll all come out. They'll all start blinking at each other, talking to each other, being like, oh, there's food here, there's food. And you'll see what feels like 100 little lights blinking all over that display. And it's really exciting. It's really fun. They love their brine shrimp, their mysis, whatever it may be that they're eating that day.
Nice.
It really helps bring a vibrance and something unique that you're really not going to see at a lot of other places.
Yeah, no other places that I've been to. So you say they use it for communication and for predator prey stuff. Can you explain like all the different ways they use it, or can you go into like how do they communicate with it? How does it help with predators? How does it help with prey? Just trying to understand.
Yeah, so they're going to live in a lot of the darker sections, not necessarily in deep ocean where you think of a lot of bioluminescence, but of like dark caves and places that you're not going to have a lot of light. And as soon as those, like they cover those lights, they disappeared. You couldn't see them at all.
No,
and
it's
imagine
insane.
if you're a predator looking for a snack, you're not going to see anything. Ideally, they're going to be pressed up against a rock. They're going to be in the really tight hiding spots. And that's, when they kind of all go dark, especially at night when, you come here first thing in the morning or at the very end of the day when they've essentially gone to sleep, for lack of a better word. And it's like that whole habitat is empty. You wouldn't even notice. And as soon as you pour the food in, they start talking to each other like, oh, there's food here. It is safe. We are comfortable. And that's the way to be like, hey, you can come out and you should come out so we can all eat, so we can all enjoy this. And it's like a family, like ringing the dinner bell. One starts flashing and then they all start flashing like, oh, okay, now it's safe. Now we can be like, hey, hi, how's it going? There's food here. Let's eat.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I like that so much. Yeah, that was, I was completely blown away by that. And I mean, I've been to an aquarium or two. It takes a lot for me to be like, what? But that was a what moment for sure. So that's really cool. And then, obviously another thing that is very important to me is sea turtles.
Of course.
And you have a resident sea turtle and then some rescue stuff. So let's talk about the resident sea turtle first. We got to spend some time with Eddie. Yeah, I like Eddie a lot.
He is such a smart animal. We do a lot of enrichment and training with a lot of our animals. We want to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, that they're mentally and physically stimulated. And when they can help in their own healthcare, even better. When we have our vet staff visit and they'll reliably showing us parts of their body or going to certain locations so we don't have to get in and catch them every time. It's a lot less stress on us and on them. And it helps them think through their day. And Eddie is just one of our, such a smart and unique animal. He's really good at following directions. We have a target for him that he'll station at. And he is very food motivated, which helps our training sessions with him. He gets cauliflower, broccoli, lettuce, pepper. He gets a lot of green pepper, which he loves. And then the occasional squid or capelin for a snack. And he's been in our ocean display for quite a few years now. Sometimes he's alone, sometimes he's not as we're moving turtles around. But he loves to just swim around, say hi to guests. He'll also sometimes get in trouble. He loves to rub his shell up against parts of our display, whether it's our coral pieces or rock work. And occasionally he'll knock something off the wall. And it's just like, cool, next time we dive, we'll just make sure we have to put that back up. Or we have a really beautiful archway of coral that I really love. We got it last year and it really has a huge pop of color to that habitat. And he'll come by and oh, this is for me. And he'll wedge himself in there, knock it over, be like, cool, I got my scratch done, and just move on. I'm like, okay, we'll just fix that next time we get in.
That's amazing.
But I mean, everybody who comes through, they want to see Eddie, and we can talk about bubble butt. We can talk about the danger sea turtles have out in the wild and what we're doing too to help sea turtles.
Which is a great transition to the hospital that's here as well. Nice job. So, yeah, please talk about that a little bit. And make sure, I don't just want to talk about the actual hospital, but the guest experience, because mind-blowing, just incredible. I love it. Yeah.
So when you look at a sea turtle, when it's in captivity, chances are that turtle has been deemed non-releasable or is in the process of being rehabilitated. You're never going to see a fully healthy sea turtle in human care. And sometimes it's hard to explain to, especially children, what that process is. What are we doing every day in our positions to help care for the animals, to help rehabilitate them, so after they move on from human care, they can be successful in the wild. And one of the ways that SeaLife does this is our Sea Turtle Rescue Center. Not only do we have the most inland sea turtle hospital in Texas, we also have a very unique experience for families to help imitate what we do. We have these small turtles that are 6 inches long and have a microchip in them. And
they're not real turtles.
They are not real turtles. Although,
just to be clear,
a lot of people from a distance will be like, are those real turtles? And you're like, no, they're not.
Very much not. No, yeah.
And you take them to each of these stations. The first station you go to, you name the sea turtle. You gender the sea turtle and you pick which species it is. And then you take that to each of our stations. The next one is our X-ray station, where you'll see what issue is affecting this sea turtle. Because when we get a sea turtle in, that's the first thing we have to do. We have to figure out what species is it, what's the sex of the turtle, and what is the issue that caused this turtle to either be stranded or cold stunned or sick. Sometimes it's very obvious. They've been, unfortunately, hit by a boat or was predatory upon by either a shark, a bird, or even just like another fish or a crab when they're very small and can't quite defend themselves as well. And they'll go through the X-ray station. So some of the examples that our guests might see in the X-ray station are hooks, are nets that the turtle might have swallowed, or plastic. Perhaps they're missing a limb, or if they have unfortunately been a victim of a boat strike. From there, this is the first time that our guests will actually see a sea turtle, as you'll see our STRC, or Sea Turtle Rescue Center. And right now we have JC in there, who's another green sea turtle.
JC's so great.
You got to see Alyssa, who is the main caretaker of JC. We do a lot of work with him to make sure he is thinking through his day. Sometimes we'll have friends in there with him. And we just do a lot of hands-on work with him, because he is, honestly, every turtle I've worked with has been so much fun, so interactive, and just wants to see what's going on. And you saw Alyssa in there working with him today. And, the idea is that these kids are holding their turtle, that they're helping rehabilitate. They're seeing the work that we're doing with our sea turtles. And then from there, they go on to our third station, which is where they get rehydrated, where they get fed. And there's like crank that you pull to help, stimulate them being fed and helping them get back to a healthy position so they can be returned to the wild. And then from there, you see our smaller hospital. Now, this is an isolated system. Our Sea Turtle Rescue Center, where JC is, can also be isolated, although currently it is running water with the rest of our aquarium. But this isolated system is really important because there unfortunately is a disease that a lot of wild sea turtles have, shortened to FP, because the full name is long and complicated and hard to say.
Right.
We'll butcher it, I'm sure.
No worries.
And that is where, if we have any new incoming sea turtles, especially smaller ones, it's a better way for them to go in. And from there, the turtles can not only get used to us, get used to eating with us, and we can keep a very close eye on them. It's a little bit of a smaller exhibit, but also prevents them from having a lot of interactions with our guests. The idea for most of the sea turtles that we receive here are to be rehabilitated and released back to the wild. But unfortunately, not every turtle can be rehabilitated, and quite a few will end up in human care for the rest of their lives, if not at SeaLife, at another facility just like us. But if the goal is rehabilitation, we don't want them to get too used to people. And we actually have a camera that looks down onto the habitat that the turtle is in. And right now we have a turtle in there who's very small. It's only about 1 foot long, and he's missing both of his left fins. So he has been deemed non-releasable. We still don't want him to get too comfortable with guests just yet, as he's getting more used to us, as he's getting comfortable here. And we want it to be a space where if a turtle comes here, is successfully rehabilitated and returned back to the ocean, we don't want them to get too comfortable around people. Right. So that camera helps guests be able to see what we're doing. It's a massive window. You can see us working with him, whether it's doing, weights, whether it's feeding, helping with vitamins, whether it's working on, moving up, cleaning or whatever we may be working on in that room at a time. There's like a curtain that's closed off, so we keep it as sterile as possible. And when then guests can mess with a turtle that's almost rehabilitated and ready to be returned back to the wild that they're holding, they can see more of the work that we're doing. And 2 years ago, we actually had a hands-on experience where we were able to actually return these sea turtles back to the wild. It was a Christmas miracle, essentially. Christmas 2022, we received a dozen Kemp Ridley sea turtles from a very bad cold sunning event from a winter storm up the Northeast. And they reached out to all these facilities and were like, hey, who can take sea turtles? Because we really need help. We don't have the space for this after this really bad storm. So we got a dozen turtles that range from 8 inches to 14 inches. And they were so freaking cute. And it was so hard not to fall in love with them. But other than being sick and a little under the weather, some had pneumonia, they were relatively healthy turtles. So we kept them here. We worked a lot on increasing their swim time, making sure they were fed, making sure they got the right vitamins. If they needed any medical care, worked really closely with our vet staff and with ARC to make sure they were receiving the best care. And then that April, a small group of us loaded them up, took them back down to the coast, and working with ARC, they gave them the final sign-off. And we were able to go out to the ocean and release. It's hard to put into words what that moment is when you're taking the sea turtle that arrived at your facility sick and injured, and going through that entire process and walking them literally back out into the ocean to just let them go. I'm trying not to cry thinking about it. Of just it made me feel like what I'm doing matters, not just for the animals here, but for the animals out in the wild. And now those turtles are out there and they're swimming around and they're doing great. And, we work a lot with ARC. And on the way back, they were like, hey, do you guys want a couple of these other sea turtles that we have that we don't really have the space for? And that's what I ended up with JC and with our other turtle that was in our smaller sea turtle hospital.
Nice. That's incredible. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I recently saw my first sea turtle release.
And it's hard not to cry.
It's impossible in my case. I sobbed, but I got to go to the hospital that day and see them go through their final testing and stuff. And even just having been there for a couple of hours in human care and then seeing them get released was amazing. And hearing their stories, I can't imagine being there and seeing them all sick and stuff, and then going through that.
And we were every day. Yeah. Christmas, Thanksgiving, people often don't think about, the aquarium's closed, it's closed, but we're still here caring for these animals because they still need us.
Mm-hmm. I do think one thing I find interesting with cold studying, and one of the things that you talked about is that, you will never see a healthy sea turtle in human care.
Mm-hmm. I should rephrase that. Our turtles are very healthy, but they're not.
Fair. You will never find a releasable sea turtle in human care. If you see one in human care, it has a problem. It's bubble butt, it's, boat strike, loss of, right. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of things, but you never see a pristine looking sea turtle, even if they are in incredible health, you know what I mean? But from a pure physical looking at it, you will always see missing flipper, broken shell, whatever, right?
And some of them you may not even, they may look perfectly like an average sea turtle from the guest side, but there's more than likely a reason, whether it's something you can't see, another issue.
I actually find that to be rare, though. I mean, normally you can tell what the problem is, and the reason I mention that is as I started to get to see cold stunned turtles, man, I was already in love with them and already think they're beautiful just seeing the broken hurt ones or whatever. But wow, seeing a 10-inch little perfect sea turtle that just got, I'm just going back to you were it was hard not to fall in love. Yes, it is. They are such beautiful animals.
Yes.
And they are so curious, even when you're not interacting, just watching them interact with being given the live crabs that they need to eat before release and stuff like that. Just watching them turtle and looking so pretty and stuff is just such a privilege. Yeah, it's just amazing. One thing I did notice as we were going through here is that, with JC and with Eddie, they have bubble butt. Mm-hmm. And I know some places, put weights on the shells or whatever. I did not see any here. And I actually have been told from other aquarists at other places that the industry is starting to move away from that a little bit. So I'm curious what the thought process is. And do you guys ever do that with them? Is it like an on-off thing? Or is the choice just that they can live comfortably in this environment with the bubble butt? What's the decision there?
It definitely depends on each animal.
Okay.
How severe is the bubble butt? As they age, is it becoming a worse problem as the pocket expands? And is this something that will the weights in the long term benefit more than harm the animal? Not that the weights won't necessarily harm animal, but it might be more stress than it's worth. For JC, we haven't found the need to add any weights. He seems to be able to function just fine. And while his bubble butt does prevent him from being a releasable animal, he is able to swim to the bottom of his display. He's able to take shorter naps. and he's able to move just fine. So we don't really have any concern with him. For Eddie, sometimes it can impact how he's moving. It can impact his just how he's getting around the exhibit, how he's interacting with his habitat. So you do keep a closer eye on him because his is a little bit more severe. So occasionally we will step in and we have this like jacket that'll put the weights on if we feel like, oh, maybe we're giving him a little bit of a break. Maybe it's making him a little bit easier to move around. And it kind of just is a day-by-day basis on if we decide that that's something he needs right now, if the wet isn't as affecting him as much. And it's something we do keep a close eye on. So for him, we do. For JC, we just haven't had the need.
Cool. That makes sense. One of the other types of animal here that I have been the most impressed with as we walked through was the guitarfish situation. And you mentioned that there are like multiple species of guitar. I did not know that. So tell me about the guitarfish.
We are very lucky to have a guitarfish. I've of course heard about them being an aquarist, but it wasn't until I came to SeaLife that I was able to work hands-on with them and to see that we have 3 different species. I'm
assuming acoustic, electric, and 12-string?
Yeah, of course, and banjo.
Yeah. Oh, okay, perfect.
Which, funny enough, is the name of one of our guitarfish.
That's amazing.
Named Banjo. We have Banjo, Luca, Lively, Fedora, and Sweet Pea.
Nice.
And our lead aquarist, Krista, has fallen in love with Sweet Pea. She is the queen of the aquarium. She gets 7 lobsters a week.
Oh, my goodness.
She gets a lot of fish, crab, and we do so much training with her because she is such a smart animal. And it helps being able to work with these animals that are you can tell are smart and thinking through things. And it makes me so excited when like an animal really nails the behavior that we're trying to get, when they're willing to go to a specific location so we can look at them, so our vet staff can look at them, if they're really thinking through their day and these problems that we're challenging them with. And it's not only providing better healthcare for them, but it's making, again, me feel like what we're doing here is impacting their lives in such a positive way. And having these 5 guitarfish here, Fedora, Banjo, and Sweet Pea are full-size guitarfish. While Luca and Lively are newer shovel nose from one of our sister sites up north. And as I'm sure you saw them, they're a little bit smaller. They're not quite that full 6 to 7 foot
still
range.
Big, though.
They're very big
cool
for adolescents. And people always are like, is that a stingray? Is that a shark? Oh, it's some hybrid. I'm like, nope, it is their own species. Guitarfish are very unique animals that a lot of people are going to get to see, but coming to the SeaLife, and a couple of the SeaLifes have them as well, is such a fun animal to talk about. How they eat, how they swim, how they rest. Because unlike a lot of sharks that you'll see always swimming around like our black tips, these guys will rest on the bottom. They'll rest on our tunnel as Fedora was when you walk through. You can see her mouth, you can see her spiracles. It's great for a quick bio lesson of like, these are the parts of this animal.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's an amazing species to see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, are there any? You seem to be a fish person. As we were walking through, you were very excited about a lot of the fish. So, are there maybe a couple of fish that you wanted to talk about or feature on here? Maybe something that's a little more unique to the aquarium.
We have a lot of very unique animals here. The first one that really jumps out at me is our scrawled filefish that we have near our mangrove. It is a massive fish compared to a normal fish that you're going to see in an aquarium. Is almost probably 2 feet long, and he's very flat, but has this like spider webbing of like blue over a brown body.
It's so pretty.
Very weird, very quirky. And it's in the same display with a couple of look downs, which are also a very unique looking fish that when you go to a dentist office or a home aquarium, you're going to see tangs, you're going to see seahorses, you're going to see, well, these are very cool animals. You're not going to see a huge variety. And that's the first one that jumps out at me, like, oh, this does not look like a fish. And it's really cool to talk about the benefits of how these animals look, of what adaptations have evolved over the course of, millions of years that have led to nature deciding like, hey, this is, peak evolution in some ways. We also have a lot of eels here, and each one has their own personality. We have tessellated, we have giant greens, we have ribbon eels even, and each one has its own name, its own story, and we can, work, and just like we train with our sharks and guitarfish, we train our eels too, to go to certain locations, to eat from certain areas, to station for us. And they all have just their own personalities, which is so cool. You don't often think about fish having personalities of But just like your dog or cat, even if you have multiple animals at home, each one is going to act differently. You can tell, oh, this one is more shy. This one's really outgoing and wants to just say hi and see guests and interact with them. And I'm just lucky to work at a place where we have so many really fun, smart, interactive animals.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. And, going along with the interactive thing, there's a lot. We talked about the sea turtle, how you can, take your own fake sea turtle and take it through. And you can go all the way to release with that. But there are a lot of things here. There are projections on the walls. There are even the design of the exhibits. You go through a shipwreck and experience all of that.
What you didn't go through was on the other side of our Stingray Bay is a kids cave. Little short for us, but it gives you a 360 view of the Stingray Bay. There are like bubbles in there, so you get a really close look at our animals in there too, because we really want to make sure that everybody can enjoy coming through here.
Right, and that is awesome. And also, speaking of bubbles, you do the bubbles so some of the exhibits are bubbles so that everything in it looks much larger, so you can really focus in on the animals. What do you think the benefit of all of that is?
I think it gives such a hands-on experience for people of all ages. We have different displays that are lower, higher, and the bubbles, especially when a fish swims by, it might look a little bigger than it would be if you were in the exhibit with the animals, but you can point out different parts of the body to, especially like children or school groups. You're like, oh, here's the tail fin, here's the operculum, here's where the gills are. Here's where, if it's a tank, like here's where a spine might be, or our lionfish swam by when we were in shipwreck and you saw it right up against the bubble, and you can talk about that animal and you get such a clear look. It's like they had a giant microscope looking at these animals, and they might be not the easiest displays to keep clean. The benefit of kids going, wow, or, oh, that's amazing, or like walking up to it, putting their face up against it and just getting such a clear look at these bright and unique and fun animals. And each one has its own story and why it's here. And, each one of you have a different reason to talk about.
Yeah, I find it all very cool. I really liked the magnification effect of that, the one bubble in particular, like you said with lionfish. I spend a lot of time looking at lionfish. They're there at every aquarium. They're a great story. They're a great invasive species conversation, all that stuff. I've never seen one like that before, like just that big and right up there in want detail.
To take a step back almost.
I literally did. Well, it also swam in front of my eyes before. I was looking at the eel that was behind, and all of a sudden there was just a spine right up my eye, and I was like, okay, like that was very cool. Yeah, no, I really like that. Is there anything else that you want to say about this facility and, any of the animals here, any of that kind of stuff?
One of the huge benefits that I have found working at SeaLife is we have so many essentially sister sites throughout the country, throughout the world, and it's created such a great story. It also helps us create a network of professionals. So where if anybody ever has a question or needs help, you have automatically this 100 people, 1,000 people that you can reach out to. And one of the things that SeaLife really focuses on are making sure that our animals, we have sustained populations of animals in human care. And what that means is that we want to make sure that as our animals are having babies, as we're helping create these healthy populations, we want to make sure that they are healthy in every way possible. And that's even down to the genetics. We can reach out to another site, whether it's in Miami or across the world, and be like, hey, we want to make sure, for example, our blue-spotted coolie rays that you saw in our nursery and out in our Stingray Bay, we work with other sites to move them as needed to make sure that we're spreading out this gene pool, that we're not having animals that are too closely related. We want to make sure that these animals have great, healthy, and successful lives. And we want to set them up for that success. And having this network of sea lions and other aquariums too around the world, whether it's reaching out to aquariums that aren't even necessarily sea life, but it's what I've found is that this community has created such an amazing family. It's such a small world where no matter where you're going to any AZA facility, you're going to find people willing to help, willing to reach out, willing to answer questions. And it's been just an amazing journey.
Very cool. Love it. Conservation organization you'd like to give a shout out to?
I have to go with SeaLife Trust. Not only because it's SeaLife as well, but we have raised this year alone $30,000 for it. And what SeaLife Trust does is helps sponsor smaller conservation projects throughout the world. We have a butterfly pollinator garden here that we installed about 2 years ago that is thriving and bringing in all sorts of biodiversity, even just hopping in our own backyard. But it has 2 larger sanctuaries out in Europe, the Cornish Seal Sanctuary, and we have a beluga whale sanctuary as well, where little gray and little white are. And their story is that when SeaLife acquired a facility out in China, it was after revamping the facility, looking at what works and what doesn't work, it was decided that little gray and little white, 2 beluga whales, should go to a better facility or better habitat for them to live in. We want to make sure that all the animals in our care, not even just reaching AZA standards, but we want to make sure that we're exceeding them, that we're giving every single animal the best life we can. And so SeaLife Trust created a beluga whale sanctuary out in Iceland, where they sort of roped off this section near an island where both beluga whales were flown out there, which you can only imagine the hurdles they had to go through to fly out 2 beluga whales, and they are thriving right now. And that sanctuary has only grown. There are 6 or 7 other displays there where they're keeping penguins and other animals to make sure that every animal that comes through one of our facilities gets the best life that it can.
That's awesome. And on the other side of things,
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
So speaking of seals, I used to dive, or do a lot of diving both here and at other facilities. And another facility I worked at had marine mammals, which includes harbor seals,
Yes.
Liberty and Bixby.
love harbor seals.
And we would dive with them. They wouldn't really bother us. Most of the time, they're just there. We're scrubbing away. We're doing whatever maintenance needs to happen. And one of them swam by, and it was a really cool moment of I'm, just there, maintaining myself, looking at this animal. A seal comes up, just staring at me. It's a really cool, moment. And then it decides to go to the bathroom right in front of me. And not only does it go to the bathroom, it then swims away, pushing all of that right into my face. Perfect. And my hair and my VC and wetsuit. And now, despite being underwater, smell like poop. And while at the time might have been a little ew, in hindsight, it was a very amazing experience that I'm lucky to have.
Sure, totally, sure. Yeah, being pooped on is great, right? Yeah, no, that I totally get it. I recently got pooped on by a red panda, and I was so excited.
Funny enough, actually have a tattoo of a red panda on my back.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Nice, very cool.
That's one of the first animals that really grabbed me by my heartstrings. Mm-hmm. Wasabi from the Oklahoma City Zoo.
Oh my gosh,
she has moved around.
Yeah.
But she just will always have my heart.
Nice. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It was a great to have you here.
So I want to take a moment here to say thank you to Chase and the entire team at SeaLife Grapevine for just an amazing day. And also, of course, to our good friend Natalie Berry for, I would go as far as to say, insisting that this interview happen. And I'm so grateful that she did. So yeah, it was a lot of fun that day. And I can't wait to get back there and see this amazing 2-story aquarium again. It's a really beautiful, really cool place. And as you could tell, I love the rescue work they're doing, and yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on there. And I actually have to say thank you to one other group of people before I say thank you to the people that I always say thank you to, which is, I know I've mentioned this before, but Edmonton Valley Zoo and the Zoo Development Society sent me a red panda suitcase and an adoption certificate for their cubs that they have this year, the red panda cubs, and all this stuff. And I finally got to use the suitcase this week. I've been traveling. And y'all, it's so cool. It looks so good. It is an actual really nice, durable suitcase. It is well made. It has all the little pouches and things that you want in a suitcase. And that was actually really exciting for me because as someone who travels a lot, like, was I excited to have a suitcase with a red panda on the front? Of course I was. Of course I was. But beyond that, how the handle feels and works actually matters. And do the zippers seem sturdy and strong? As somebody who's on the road a lot, that actually really matters to me. And it was very cool to get to actually use the suitcase as a suitcase for multiple days in multiple places and just be even more enamored with it. Is my favorite part still the red panda on the front? Of course. But it's actually a great suitcase. So thank you to everyone at the team there that, helped me get that suitcase because y'all it means a lot to me. And what a great reminder of what Rossifari has become every time I go everywhere now. So very, very cool. Thank y'all. And then the last people I have to say thank you to are, of course, my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Kevin Williams. Thank y'all so much for being such huge supporters of the podcast. We'll be back on Friday with some zoo news. And until then, don't forget, folks, the word credits backwards is Steiderk.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.